Now I would like to welcome Offir Levy. He's Regional Vice President of Sales at Medigate by Claroty, who will give us an approach to hospital cyber resilience. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Hello, good morning, almost afternoon. So my name is Offir Levy. I have three main goals for today and for this talk. The first is to get a little bit into the complexity and to show you, in my opinion, how unfair it is, how difficult it is for a cybersecurity professional to protect a healthcare organization. And then the second thing that I would like to show you is a bit about how we address this issue and how we support over 3,000 hospitals worldwide, including a few dozen here in Israel, to address these issues. And three, I would like to give you a little peek into a substantial project we are running with the Ministry of Health here. We've had Yaniv from the Cyber Regulation Unit in the Ministry of Health. He's been asking great questions in the previous panel, so he'll be giving us some answers. So that will be the third part. All of this will be fairly quick. Bear with me. So first of all, Medigate has been acquired by Claroty. It's a company that only addresses cybersecurity for healthcare organizations. Okay, so the last 4 years of my life, all I've been doing is helping healthcare organizations protect themselves. And I think most of the details about us, we can skip. So I don't think I'll be spending a long time convincing you about how real the threats to cybersecurity are. We've seen so many speakers here today do that. I would like to point out a pivotal year, which was 2017. I think that WannaCry hasn't been mentioned here today, and in my opinion, historically speaking, it is a major thing to note, to understand the history of this space. So it was the first ransomware attack that impacted the healthcare dramatically, globally. For example, in the UK, the NHS, about a third of NHS hospitals were impacted. Some went down for a couple of hours, others for a couple of months. Really drew a lot of attention towards this issue, this problem of cybersecurity in healthcare. It also led to Medigate being started. So, as I said, my first goal would be to show you how complex it is to protect a healthcare organization in terms of cybersecurity, and we'll be talking about this complexity now. Maybe before I do that, there was something mentioned before around threats to patient lives, right? There have been proofs of concepts of manipulation of medical devices in order to harm patients. While that is definitely a very dramatic thing and very scary and something that in the future may be a larger issue, in my opinion, we're missing the much more important thing right now today, which is that ransomware attacks against healthcare organizations shut them down for an extended amount of time, as we have seen here and really in almost any country in the world, and people are getting hurt. Okay, when you impact the care of thousands and thousands of patients, sure, for most of them it wouldn't really matter if that elective time to see the doctor has moved or something like that. But for a few it will impact patient care. It happens every day and people are getting hurt. So I think that when we get to the third part of the talk today, I can say that I feel like we are really helping a healthcare organization. It's something that I'm very proud of. So why is it so complicated to protect a healthcare organization? We may not get into all of the points. This gets a bit complicated. But first of all, healthcare organizations suffer from the same issues that any organization trying to protect itself is suffering from. Hospitals are also widespread, as Professor Gamzu had said. They have thousands of people. Some are staff, some are patients, some are random guests who came into the hospital. And securing different types of environments is tricky enough. In healthcare, there are also the medical devices and other IoT devices. This is the focus of what we do. Okay? So what we are finding with these devices, as has been mentioned before, their life cycles are much longer than traditional IT equipment. So if you change your laptop every couple of years, or maybe a server every 3 or 4 years, an MRI machine can be state-of-the-art for 15 and 20 years. Because of regulation, its operating system does not get updated. Okay? So that means that as a customer, the hospital cannot replace that machine or upgrade it very, very easily. it cannot even install an antivirus on that device. Okay, so when we are talking about the very basics of cybersecurity, that is antivirus or the modern EDR, that is impossible to implement on, pay close attention, the majority of devices in a hospital's network. So when we are addressing cybersecurity in a hospital, and we go and discuss the regular tools that are used in just any sort of enterprise organization, we are looking under the flashlight. We are going to where it's comfortable and easy to discuss cybersecurity because we have data, we have tools, but the vast majority of the devices cannot be protected using these traditional methods, okay? To add to that, these medical devices also connect to the internet. It's something that was brought up before. Everyone wants access to data. The vendors do, the customers should. I mean, the data itself allows for better patient care. That also explains the accelerating connectivity as is shown on the screen. Everyone wants their devices to be connected, sending data somewhere. Now, imagine this. We have old devices. Regulation prevents us from even patching them against cybersecurity concerns. We cannot install antivirus on them. They connect out to the internet. So if someone is saying, well, the firewall will protect them, right? So what does a firewall do? The very basic job of a firewall is to identify what makes sense, right? Who's in the organization? What are they doing? And if they're communicating to the internet, what are they doing? And let's make sure it makes sense and not and see if we want to block it or not. Firewalls are not built to address the complexity in healthcare organizations. So the regular policy is healthcare organizations here in the room might agree, tend to be allow all on these firewalls. Moving on, from an organizational perspective, if you go into a hospital, that was also mentioned before, and you ask, who here is responsible for cybersecurity? So in many cases, there will be a CISO. That's a new thing, and it's good that it's happening. But the information security department, or even the IT department as a whole, cannot fully address cybersecurity without clinical engineering. Right? Clinical engineering are people, their entire universes are taking care, maintaining the medical devices and making sure that they can take care of patients. They deal with the vendors, right? Vendors were also mentioned as relevant players in cybersecurity. These are people that know more about what these devices are, what they do, how they should be connected than anyone in the world. Simply having another department that is part of this discussion proves a challenge, okay? Just who is responsible for cybersecurity is not a straightforward question. So what do we understand from all of that? There is a huge attack surface in hospitals that is also unowned in many of these cases. Traditional cybersecurity tools do not provide an answer. So I hope my first goal was achieved. This is very tricky and hard to manage. So moving on to what Medigate by Claroty does. So first of all, our solution is completely passive. Okay, we understand that in healthcare, we cannot afford to disrupt even a single point of care of a patient as a whole. The source of everything that we know and do is network traffic. That means that we tell or we ask the IT infrastructure team of a hospital, give us a copy of the traffic, a copy of all of the communications running across the network. That means that we never scan anything, no information has to be filled out manually, and most importantly of all, there's no disruption. Even if our system, shuts down for some reason, it's just a copy of the traffic. We do not use agents, as mentioned, these cannot run on many of these legacy devices. So what we first do is help our customers discover their different devices. Automatically and within minutes, the organizations now have a map. They have an understanding of what is connected to the network. Imagine you approach the Tel Aviv University security team, and they're telling you, we have no idea who's in here, and we haven't checked them on their way in. That is reality in the vast majority of healthcare organizations. Just simply this first step of telling them, you have these devices. Here they are. Here are their pictures. And for every device, a ton of data, of information that is useful for things I'll talk about in a minute. But we can know about this specific ultrasound by GE exactly what it is, the fact, of course, that it's an ultrasound, where it is, as you can see there on the map, what's its serial number. If I mentioned clinical engineering, these are people who do not work with MAC addresses and IP addresses, all right? They're not the same DNA as cybersecurity departments. Their single strong identifier for finding devices and understanding even what we are talking about is the serial number of the device. Until today, those two very basic pieces of information about the different devices, the very basics of asset management, have not been part of the same information system. We have the IP address, the MAC address, and the serial number of the device. I cannot overstate how important that is in real life. We do it via data analysis, what's called deep packet inspection. We take a look at every single message that gets sent across the hospital. We try to identify who said what to whom and why. What are they trying to say and what can we learn about them just by listening, okay? We check every packet that is being sent across the network. We are vendor agnostic. We support many, many thousands of vendors. And that goes to medical devices, IT equipment, IoT equipment, OT equipment. So imagine the different gases that are being sent across the hospital. Imagine the elevators, the parking lot. In many cases of ransomware attacks, these very basics of running a hospital gets shut down. In the famous case in Israel in Hillel Yafe, the elevators were shut down. Imagine having to carry patients when the elevator is not working between different floors. Imagine staff coming in and the gate to the parking lot does not open, okay? So all of these legacy devices, medical and others, it's our job to first of all identify them and pick up as much information about them as we can. Next, we help our customers assess the risk, because that's what we're here to do effectively, to reduce that risk. So we have a risk score, quantifiable risk has also been mentioned here before. That's the point. We need to help our customers understand where their biggest risks are. Where are the really gaping holes that are screaming for an attacker to come in? Because in the end of the day, the task is to reduce that risk over time. We take into account how vulnerable the device itself is, how it's connected, and what it is doing. So obviously, we're going to differentiate between the vending machine and the infusion pump, because one may lead someone not getting their Coke, and another, of course, can impact a patient life. Now, we want to help our customers protect what they have. So the first thing that we do is we take all of the information about the different assets and try to map what are the biggest gaps, what are the biggest things we need to address to reduce the security across the organization. That could be segmentation issues. It could be old operating systems that can be updated. It could be default passwords that are being used and many other things. We compile this list of actions that is prioritized based on their impact on the overall risk level. Okay, this is something that's meant to be simple, intuitive, and easy to use. We have many different people that are involved in projects like this, and it needs to be easy to understand. I think Yaniv will address that in a minute. Then we help our organizations monitor the situation, because we can reduce risk forever and it may not be enough, and an attack or an attempted attack will come. That's why the system identifies more than 12,000 network exploitations and other anomalies that happen across the organization that can lead the security teams to understand that an attacker is inside the network, or even that there's any sort of malware in any one of the networks, which can of course escalate into a cyber attack. We even look at how the device is communicating. So in this case, we're looking at the same ultrasound from before and how it's communicating over the network. What is there in a circle is an RDP session. So someone is remotely connecting that ultrasound. I'm not a physician, but that's not how you operate an ultrasound. We have a deep awareness and knowledge of how medical devices and other legacy devices communicate. Among our investors, for example, are names like Siemens, okay? So the very manufacturers of these devices are working with us to help us understand what is normal and what isn't. And last, we try to help our customers save money. So we didn't intend on doing this. However, we realized that with listening to every message on the network, we can help our customers do more than cybersecurity. So among helping